Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm gonna show you the rest of my process for this drawing. So I start with short strokes, comparing details with each stroke. I can check the model and then I can check my drawing. I'll take my time, I don't rush it at this part. I should have more of the structure already done. So it's basically adding a little more details and doing really small changes. And also with this I'm trying to separate a bit more of the lights and the shadows. As you can see on this part on the nose, I add some of the shadows. From now on, it is basically going over the underdrawing, making subtle changes as I add more detail. Something I would like to mention as well is I know each sitting is of 35 minutes, so I concentrate on a single part of the drawing each time. In this case, I'm only concentrated on the head and the face, so I'm not working on the body, because the model always moves a little bit in between poses. I don't commit to, for example, the hands at this time. I will do that on the next sitting. I'm also going some of the structure, trying to give it more form to the face. I know this is not gonna be the final drawing, so I'm trying to do subtle separations, trying to highlight some of the muscles, especially on the face. As you can see, separating the lights and shadows. So putting a little bit more pressure where I want it to be darker. At the moment I was working really light, but this time I'm committing more with my pencil, so I'm pressing a bit harder as well. So I'm also adding some white. I can bring some of the highlights back. This will just give me a better idea of some of the features on the face. I'm adding white and then some red just to separate the lights and shadows. Now with a soft white pastel, I'm trying to add the highlights on the body as well. With my brush, I'm trying to render everything so it's quite subtle and it's not as hard. Especially with the chalk, sometimes you get hard marks. Now we're going to the rendering stage. By this time I should have all the structure features well defined, so I just need to go over the lines with a darken pencil. While we're doing this, I just like to give you some advice about some of the stuff you might hear when you are learning to draw, especially from life. One of them will be practice. They say practice makes perfect, but repetition is always good to build the skills, but not so good if you want to build knowledge. What I mean is, when drawing, especially when learning a new skills, it's better to have a purpose rather than just draw for the sake of drawing. Think about what are you going to focus on this session? What is the purpose of this session? Don't just go and draw. Are you going to focus on negative space on this time? Or are you going to focus on anatomy? Are you going to looking at the form? Or are you going to look at light and shadows? It is better to focus one thing at a time on each session, otherwise it can get overwhelmed. My suggestion will be maybe watch a video about, for example, anatomy, and then when you go to the drawing session, focus only on anatomy. And you don't have to focus on anatomy of the whole body, for example, but you can focus on anatomy of the arm, or anatomy of the hands, or anatomy of the head. Have that in mind and have a purpose before you go live drawing. Okay, now let's go back to the drawing. I put a little bit of contrast in the background, and then I start doing some of the hair. At this moment I'm just adding a little bit of contrast between the lights and the dark, and nothing too hard really. Now I'm happy with the face and I have done all the details. I move into the rest of the body. I make sure I don't start with the body until I'm happy with the face first. And the reason I'm gonna do that is because the face is gonna help me figure out all the values for the rest of the drawing. Right, as you can see, I just left the hands because I'm sure she's probably gonna move the hands slightly for the next set. So I just focus on background and try to cover as much as I can before the break. And now I'm softening a little bit with my brush so it's not as harsh, and then it's ready for the final stage. The final stage is the contrast and just adding final details. At this stage I introduce my black pencil to create more contrast and make the figure pop out. Black can be quite harsh, so for that reason I add it in small amounts, then compare it to the model, evaluating my darkest darks. This is going to be really useful later on when I do the rest of the body. As you can see, I don't go over every single line with black, just over where the shadows are more noticeable because the light is not hitting hard enough. I also try to create more contrast between the background and the subject. Remember that black pushes back and white brings forward, so it is important to use those two subtly, otherwise the figure will look flat. So as black is quite harsh, I try to soften it down with my brush as well, and I press harder when I want to make my darkest dark, in this case underneath the ear and in some parts of the hair. Right, I'm just adding some of the highlights, and this drawing should be ready to be finished. I continue with white for the whole face. It will be my reference for the whole body. Same as the black, I use white in the face first as a base for the lightest part, then I'm gonna use for the whole body. So I leave the small details like the tattoo for the end, just in case I run out of time. At least I finish with the figure. But if I get extra time, I can always work in details like tattoos or rings or anything external. And if you enjoyed this process, please let me know. And what would you like to see next? What would you like to learn? What would you like me to talk about? I hope I don't bore you with all my talking, but you know, it will be good for me to have talking point. So let me know in the comments below, and I will try to answer those questions on the next few videos. I think now we are quite finished with the drawing. It's as much as I can do in the time given, so I will have to stop soon. Right, so today I really enjoyed the session today. I'm glad I took my time doing some measurements. It was difficult to push the shadows because the light was a bit soft, but overall I really enjoyed it. I'm very tired now. Something to improve, maybe try to use colors next time. I'm still a bit afraid of colors, but I will get there eventually. I hope you really enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.